to Maverick Minded Realtors. I'm Casey Smith, and I am here to talk to my broker, Jer'Leigh, about house hacking because she was going on and on the other day.
On and on.
On and on about this new way to house hack. And the way that I understand house hacking is it's kind of like a young person's game, right? When you're out of college and if you want to save money, like you can, get into a house, rent out the other rooms, basically live in the property, maybe live in a half duplex. Like basically you're living with roommates and other things. And so as you get older, that doesn't sound super appealing.
Yeah, it's not as feasible,
Yeah.
Unless,
And I've also noticed that a lot of the concept of like community with your family and friends is kind of just a lost thing in the US. It feels as though we all have our own individual houses, we have to have our own resources, and it becomes very expensive and very difficult to manage as like a single unit family or even just a single person or whatnot.
Well, and even if you start thinking about like most of the families out there don't have both parents. So then you have single parents, multiple kids, it gets more and more difficult. Whereas, for all of eternity up until about World War II, we all did more of a communal living, whether it was everybody was on the same parcel of land or, in the same house. And then as you travel, you and I have both traveled quite a bit. Everywhere you go, it's more communal. You've got the kids, the grandparents are there on the property. If it's a brownstone that's 4 or 5 stories, the oldest generation's on the bottom, and it gets younger the higher you go. But that helps with not only your legacy, keeping all of those funds under one roof, but it also helps with like everyday expenses, taking care of children, taking care of parents, just the caregiving in general for all the generations.
Watching over your stuff when you go on vacation.
Yeah, dog sitting, come on.
It is true.
But it's after World War II when people were leaving farms and people were given the VA loans so they could go and get their own place and move to the city and these bright new jobs, which was all great, but it can only go so far. Like at some point, we get to a point of no return, like because we're all the money's leaving and you're keeping very little under one roof.
And I know a lot of people are feeling that way with rents going up because we have to keep up with property taxes and inflation with groceries
just
and
the
things
cost
like that.
of living in general. The cost of living always goes up, right? But inflation right now, people's debt to income is way, way higher than it's ever been, that we've ever seen it. You're thinking about your college debt. A lot of people that have massive college debt can't buy a home. So then you've got restrictions, and really we're in a market right now where it's harder than it's ever been for younger generations to buy a house because the barrier of entry is so high. The cost to get in there, and then where your credit has to be, and then you cannot have that massive debt or massive college debt. So it's just getting a lot harder. And the more we started discussing this, the more I was like, well, really the ultimate house hack is kind of going back to the way we were. Instead of paying for the assisted living and pushing your kids out there to go get your own debt, like make it crush you too. Woo, let's do this.
Yeah.
Maybe you just stay home a little bit longer, but we're going to add on to our house, or we're going to build an accessory dwelling unit on our property. And that way we can share resources. And not everybody's out there just taking on more debt and getting more and more isolated.
So we aren't reinventing any wheels here.
No, we're not reinventing anything. But we started calling this on the construction side of things, just for clarity, just for people to be interested, is the ultimate house hack, right? So instead of somebody living, I don't always want my kids to be living under my roof. They're kind of messy. They don't do their dishes, they've been out on their own, and so they do their own thing. But what I will consider is adding on to my house. And you have your own entry point. You clean your own space. I don't have to see it. And you're not taking on this massive debt. Or going out there and having to deal with all of this, and I'm having to help you, because that's typically what's going to end up happening. If you can't survive, then it's coming out of my bank account.
It's true.
Yeah.
And
then Gen X is kind of getting it from both ends here, because we're the ones with the boomer parents, typically that are, and that's the largest aging generation out there. And so what are we going to do?
And there's an assisted living shortage.
There's assisted living shortage, and it's not freaking cheap.
It's incredibly expensive.
It's incredibly expensive.
It's like college for your parents.
Yeah. It's more expensive than college.
Got to fund those bingo
because
activities.
Now it's more like to get a nice, just nice. We're not even talking about super fancy martinis at $5. We're talking about nice. It's somewhere between $7,500 and $10,000 a month.
That's wild.
And so everything that your parents have accumulated may end up going to their end of life care.
And that doesn't serve you well.
No. Well, it doesn't help out. Like, they worked their entire life to have this legacy to possibly pass on and enjoy. And then now it's just going to go to end of life care.
I think there's a lot to this. Not only is this opportunity in property addition and value, solves a big problem for personal families, it also helps realtors understand certain types of buyers and what their interests might be in looking for properties or even showing the potential of a property.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you would propose, like, given the landscape of a lot of homes in the U.S., what typically, and I know everywhere is different, but for example, I know like in California, having casitas and like ADU units are actually pretty common.
Yes.
But not so much in Texas. We have a lot of
because
space.
we have all this land, and so people just keep going out further and further and further. Well, that sprawl is starting to kind of stop. I mean, it's not stopping by any means. We'll continue to sprawl, but not everybody can afford that, right? And so there are certain cities that are starting to approve those casitas or the accessory dwelling units, but not every city has done it yet because they're afraid, oh, well, now we're going to have multiple families living on one small little piece of property. There's conventions going on all over the nation trying to introduce this to municipalities to let them understand that this is a need that's going on with the general population.
Are there any regulations in Texas regarding these types of?
It's city to city.
City to city.
So like we're in Arlington right now, the city of Arlington, unless you have acreage, you cannot do an ADU. And if you do have, which is the accessory dwelling unit, a casita or anything like that, you cannot do an ADU unless you're on acreage, and it has to be rented to a family member. It cannot be rented out. How they're going to manage that, how they're going to police that, you can't really.
I've had a couple kind of investment clients that are doing some flips on properties, and a lot of these properties have been at least like kind of slightly larger lots, maybe a half an acre on, and they might have like multiple houses on them and stuff.
Yep.
Some of them are going ahead and converting like drywalling, electrical, maybe putting in a sink. Are you saying, like, would that be considered a type of accessory unit just because they install that on their own property?
If you install plumbing.
It's plumbing?
Yeah, it's really plumbing. You can have like a room that's considered like an office or a shop or something like that. But if you install plumbing, then they're considering it an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
But that to say, like in Irving's permitting department is a lot more lax than Arlington. So it is very much city to city. But let's say you can't do accessory dwelling units, you can do an addition on your home, have a separate entryway, so that even if you're taking on your parents, and by the way, each state's different in what Medicare or Medicaid will help pay for. So really and truly, you might actually qualify for that funding. They were going to pay somebody else to provide, but now you provide it in-house with, whether there's a nurse that comes, to your home and helps take care of your elder. But once they pass and you have this spare room, this spare space, now you can rent it out. So now you have an income stream.
I was going to say there has to be some kind of benefit, not just in grants or types of care, but also in, hey, you can rent that, have some additional income.
Yeah. Eventually your kids may move off and get married, relocate, whatever, and now you have that space that you can rent out to somebody else.
Yeah.
or you're renting it out to your kids. I mean, I'm not saying your kids and your parents live for free. Everybody contributes, but that way you're pooling your money and not everything is going out the front door, the back door, and every window. You're able to consolidate your funds and build and keep that wealth easier. There's a reason why the rest of the world does it this way. It's because it works.
It does, yeah. And it might seem overwhelming, to figure out how to do it on your house, but that's what your company does, right?
Yes.
They go in and they kind of show what the options are, whether it be a house addition or if you want to go through the permitting, should a city allow it. Do you help the homeowners figure all of that stuff out?
Yeah, figure it out, plan it. Where would it go? Where would you want your entry point? Who is it going to be for? If it's for an elder, then we want it to be ADA compliant. You're going to want, a shower they can get into, that sort of thing. So those things have to be taken into consideration. But these are all things that I don't know if you've done any research, but my grandmother's turning 94 this weekend.
Go Granny.
But I've been trying to convince her for freaking 3 years to move in with me. And so therefore I've been looking for houses for 3 years that would accommodate her and us to where she feels like she's living independently and everybody still has their privacy. And every time a house comes up that has a mother-in-law suite, and there's not a lot of them out there. I know there's some specialty builders and things like that, but in a fairly medium house income, they're hard to come by. And when they get on the market, they're gone.
Right.
They do not last long.
I know we particularly look for properties in Irving because you're right, it's a little bit different, but it is a large Hispanic community, and so there's family living is really normal in this area. So we always have to maximize the space because we know their relatives are coming to live with them. So that's why you see so many garage conversions and things like that. But those houses and you also have more rents you can charge.
Yeah.
And people forget that, even if you're an investor, making sure you're investing in properties that maybe have that access, because not all families can afford to buy, but then you have more people contributing to the rent, you're able to pay your property taxes, and it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So I think it really does go both ways.
Absolutely. As far as talking to some of my builder investors of doing some projects, that's what we're talking about, is making sure that we're doing projects that can assist that multi-generational housing. Yeah. And I just feel like this solves a lot of the problems that American families are feeling right now. Now, granted, whenever you're talking about higher income and you're talking about those really high-end builds, they kind of already plan for that, or you have a guest house that could be whatever, but that's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about regular Americans that need, the middle income and lower that need extra housing. And how do you do that? And that's through doing a HELOC loan, doing a home improvement loan. These loans are easier to qualify for than going out and buying a new house, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's asset based. It's not based on your credit and how much debt you have. It's based on that property.
And you're adding the value.
And you're adding value to your home.
The property.
Yeah.
Seems like a no-brainer, really. But it sounds like this is just such a good niche to look in. I think it's important to remind realtors and investors that some of your strategies work in different markets, and you have to be open-minded to what the population is needing and wanting based on a lot of different factors. So I think that's where a lot of realtors, their weaknesses is they have experience in one type of transaction, one type of buyer. Maybe they specialize in VA loans or first-time home buyers, but there is a whole niche out there of aging populations and families that have those people that are a whole different world. I think they said something like only 20% of homes, maybe even less, like in the last couple of years, were just first-time homeowners. So if you are trying to target somebody, this is a really good way to help somebody out.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is, are we solving problems? I mean, that's what we're supposed to be, not only as investors, but also as realtors. You're supposed to be solving problems.
Exactly.
And, and deciding, all right, is a house the best, a new house, a bigger payment, a higher interest rate, is that really the best bet for you right now? Or what about this?
Yeah, exactly.
and being able to offer those options.
So question, if I'm a realtor that goes to a house and maybe they're looking to sell because of this situation, they need more space, maybe they have a relative coming to live with them, what would you propose a realtor do if they feel like they would be a good fit for a program like that? Is there any way that they, obviously we want to help people and do things, but if they were to suggest, because obviously a realtor is going to want the listing, right? And so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit now, but would it be, we're also here to provide resources and let them know they're looking for our advice. So it's not always the best. So this is another tool they can have and say, hey, have you considered this option? And then they can refer a company like yours
to this,
to them to
which
see if
we're putting together like a commission plan, because I really feel like that our best partnership with a product like this is with realtors, because it's going to have to go through title. It's going to have to you're dealing with a loan officer and a loan product. You know, so there's a process to it. It's not just we're building a pavilion or we're building a deck. So it's not just that, it's we're helping solve a problem, and you know how best as a realtor to walk them through that process and to show them, hey, this is what your house is worth right now, but if you added on to it and you did this, then this is what it would be worth later on.
And I think that that's you kind of playing the long game with a client, because you're solving an immediate problem now in a better way than finding them a new house, but they're going to come to a time where they still might outgrow it. Or maybe their other family members and their kids grow up and then they go to you because you solved their parents' problem, and they know that you're gonna have their best interest at heart too. So I definitely think it's important to again, just open the minds of realtors and the possibilities and ways to earn commission. And I don't know of any programs like that at all. So what is the name of the program, and like how can people get more information on going that route?
So we're just calling it, because I'm going to start doing more informational programs and things like that on it, advertising, marketing on it. But we're calling it the Ultimate House Hack, and it's through Jimco Construction, and this is pretty local. I have no doubt that that other companies will start offering it whenever we start putting it out there. But we will have, we're having it built out right now, the website, so that you can do a A/B comparison of, if I'm buying a house for this much, what will that look like, and the pros and cons, and then if I do an addition onto my house or build an ADU, how much will that cost, what will that payment look like, and what are the pros and cons. So you can just kind of see it right there in front of you, and sometimes just walking your family through that and seeing it in black and white helps you come to the correct conclusion, right?
I love it.
And then just educating more realtors on the option of, because it's solving problems. I don't know how many investors I've picked up as long-term clients by allowing them to, you know what, you pick up the house, I don't need a commission, I'll list it.
Right.
Or you do this, because it's a give-take, or, it's a symbiotic relationship, and then I get referred to somebody else, and now I have more business because I was willing to give a little bit. So it won't be the same commission. It's not going to be your $15,000, $30,000 commission that you would get on selling that next house, but it would be a commission, and then now there is a stream there that you can go ahead and you can inform people, you can educate them, and it could possibly help, entire communities rather than just one person.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So
well done,
anyway,
Jer'Leigh. Well
thanks. It's not new,
You're
but
so smart. So smart.
But anyway, if y'all want any more information, or you want me to send you something on it, then holler, drop a comment or something like that. I'm really passionate about this project, just because, one, I love helping people, but it's near and dear to me, because I was trying to do it with my grandma, although I don't think she's moving anywhere.
Come on, Grandma. We'll give you a nice little unit.
You can have it all to yourself.
Awesome.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. We are Maverick Minded Realtors, and I am Jer'Leigh Thompson.
And I'm Casey Smith, and our goal is to honestly just give you insight into different ways of being a realtor and surviving in a changing economy. See you next time.